I did my graduation in chemistry as a general science subject, chemistry honors. If in fact, if you're familiar with the graduation degrees in
Yeah,
Eastern India,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so it's an honor subject. So we had a specialization in it,
Mhm.
and I did it with first class. And then after that, I switched to Bangalore, JNCASR, and IISc, both places I used to work. My master's was MS in material sciences.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, where I worked in ceramics. In fact, not only in ceramics, but a lot of inorganic materials.
Mhm.
Basically, ceramic processing, crystallography, dielectric properties, magnetic properties. It was purely from academic interest. And as you know, in Indian academia, it's not much industry projects that we get. This
Mhm.
is purely from the understanding perspective, the basic science that we used to do. This was from 2011 to 14. And then after that, in the PhD time, I went on to kind of establish a new field in the lab. In the lab, existing field was purely on the multiferroics, dielectrics of ceramic oxides. But what I try to do is prepare single crystals of hybrid halides where organic and inorganic interface is there, and those kind of systems, they can have interesting magnetic optical properties such as photoluminescence or phosphorescence, fluorescence, like that, and also interesting magnetic and optical properties. So those kind of bulk studies I used to do. So yeah, I mean, expertise wise, crystallography, bulk property measurements, multiple instruments, exposure, first hand exposure. So I will also, I think I will share the few slides that I had made. That would be the best thing to do, in fact.
This okay. I mean, I really want to know more about the questions that you have. I understand your research and
Yeah.
all. That's good. And because I want to focus more on our time on, especially the questions
Yes.
you have. So this is your background and what you do right now, what you have done after that.
After completing PhD, I directly joined industry. I transited from academia to purely core hardcore industry
Uh,
at Saint Gobain. They
okay.
have an R&D center in Chennai,
Okay.
and there, in fact, I had multiple instruments in a laboratory where I used to do microstructure, bulk property measurements of ceramics, glass, abrasives,
Mhm.
polymers, metals, and the kind of activity that I used to do was root cause analysis, defect study, competitive benchmarking, new product development, say stage gate process. So
Right.
all those different industrial jargons and the related activities that I got exposed to, and
Okay.
I learned the product chemistry. In fact, the subtle, I would say, the ways of using the different techniques and the instruments, and then it was more becoming like a one track or one sided knowledge development. So then now I switched to application scientist position at Thermo Fisher Scientific. And here what am I doing is I'm taking care of three different techniques related application. The techniques are X-ray fluorescence, spark OES, that is for metal chemical composition and defect analysis, and XRD. So here, my area of work is metallurgy, ceramics. In ceramics, I mean glass, cement, any kind of functional ceramics, geotextiles. Then of course polymers, food. So all those industrial, I would say the big players such as Tata, JSW, AMNS, or Nestle, Biocon, you name almost like any big organization, they have the thermo products. And when they want to analyze something, they have some
Yeah.
technical challenge,
So
or they are also not able to provide the solution to customer.
yeah.
We support that.
So it looks
Yeah.
like you're an application manager there, right? So um, I think if I understood correctly, so your role would be to, is it more sales, technical sales, or what the role is?
Presently, it is a technical sales,
Okay.
also application development, where we can show our instruments usefulness.
Yeah, yeah.
So I
No,
take
and
part in those kind of
mhm.
activities. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about what your questions are because I got your email.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, go ahead. Now what are you looking into and what's your questions?
So what I've understood in my past 2 years in Saint-Gobain and 1.5 year in Thermo Fisher is that in most of the R&D, so-called R&D in Indian subcontinent, it is purely QA QC or
Hmm.
basically large scale production of the activities. So it is not really R&D, and the exposure related to that is also the work culture related to that is also not quite well.
Hmm.
So in this regard, I was thinking. Uh, for a long time I was thinking, yeah, I would like to see any global, position and similar opportunity
Mhm.
that will help me in my growth, and also I can be more impactful in the
Okay.
organization.
Yeah.
So in this
Okay.
regard, I am looking forward actually.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think I understood correctly. So let me summarize it if I understood correctly. And actually, the I can sense the I would say the misery you are having. So
Mm.
because if you probably have bachelor's degree, you wouldn't have those questions. So being a PhD, you probably expect much more so-called an R&D related position where your knowledge is more applied versus because the job you are doing. To be honest with you, most of the jobs. I mean, I had a job like that previously, and this type of job, usually a bachelor's with a 5-6 years experience can do it. You don't need a PhD for that, and that's why most of the people who have PhDs have that sort of a questions. What you
Yeah.
are, if I sense correctly, what you're saying, right? Um, um, so uh, I will um, have two part of for this particular ground. One is there a possibility for you to come to Europe, US, or wherever, whatever you have thought process in your mind, where you feel that the jobs are more R&D centric related, and you probably will be able to use your degree much better way, right?
Yes.
That's the idea, right?
Yes.
Because let's say if there is a job somewhere, but it's the same, then probably other than money, there is not much of a value, to be honest with you, right? So answer to that question is depends on the industry. So
Agree.
so the company you are in or the industry you are in, it's very sales focus. It's
Yeah.
heavily sales focus.
Mm.
And so whenever even you are talking to a customer, you're you're trying to explain the scientific point of view, but if you're not able to sell the product, there's no point,
Totally agree with you.
right? And as I
Yes.
said, I was there in that particular position, and I understand the frustration behind it. I didn't like it
Mm-hmm.
for many other reasons, because at the end I realize it's like at the end of the day they look at how much prospects you have, how much sales you are bringing, right? So I felt
Mm-hmm.
like it is too much for me, and then I had a manager who was really I didn't like it. So, but
Mm-hmm.
I would what I was trying to tell you here is, even if you come to US, let's say, but if you choose a company like Thermo Fisher,
Mm-hmm.
your job description or the job that you will be doing would be the same. So I will give you example of mine. I used to work for a company called Ansys. They are an engineering
Okay.
software company,
Okay.
right? So there are two part of it, that company, right? Even for Thermo Fisher, if you can understand, one is the purely technical part, where there is a guy who is designing the optics, there is a guy who is designing the who is writing the code behind how the computer is going to talk to the hardware, right? That's a very technical job. So that's a one type of job, right? There's the other team part of it, and these people are not more than 1,000, 3 4, depends on the company. They are very very less, but they are technical extremely. That's what
Okay.
they they are the one who are working on the next generation product, a product development, right?
Yeah.
And then the second part of it, where I think you are in, which is technical sales, and because it's an engineering centric company, you just cannot hire somebody who has a bachelor in commerce and say go ahead and sell it. You need someone who
Yeah.
understands the technical part of it, and that's why in these companies you will find people who are in technical sales are masters or PhDs. Because sometimes, if because your customers are what, your customers are R&D labs or the universities, right? And you're
Yes.
talking to a
Yes. Yes.
professor, and if you can't understand their language, what's the point, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is, if you look for a company like that, it would be the same here too. Other than that, you will probably make so-called more money. Again, it's a
Mm-hmm.
so-called more money, but
Yeah.
that's a separate discussion. So it would be the same. The second part of it is, you probably have to then look for a company or look for a job, completely different, completely different in a completely different companies, not a consumer goods company, if I have to say those words, but a totally different company where
Mm-hmm.
they are they are more or more they are heavy on R&D,
Mm-hmm.
and pretty much the business is not fragile. That means the entry to market of any newcomer is very low. For example, if you're working for a company who are in the business of selling turbine engines, these are set companies you can name in your hand. So the entry into market for a new business is very low. Other than if you work in a company like Samsung or LG, where every second day there's another company coming up, um, and every other day there is a new phone coming up,
Yeah.
right? Same with Thermo Fisher. I mean, you can name how much competitors are. They are
Mm.
small scale, they're large scale, and everybody is trying to sell the product, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is you have to look for those companies that fits you. Having said that, the more time you're going to spend in the role what you are in the companies you are, the harder the transition is.
Yes.
Nobody's going to entertain you. Nobody cares what your PhD is after 3-4 years. It
Yes.
so whatever job you get is based on what you had done just before that. So tomorrow, let's
Mm-hmm.
say you're gonna say, "Hey, I'm gonna work for Apple because I have a PhD in making this crazy glass, which is
Mm-hmm.
better than Gorilla Glass." Let's say, right? But as I said, if you work in Thermo Fisher, the transition will be very, very unlikely. Very unless somebody
Yeah.
you have a good network and somebody really knows it, and it happens sometimes, but as I said, it's going to be tough. You would be
Mm-hmm.
getting a job in companies which are like Thermo Fisher, right? And
Understand.
rightly or so, because then you know the customers is it's very easy for them to poach you and things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So keep that in mind. So that's the second part of it, and the third part of it usually is um, for someone who is in US, India or somewhere, and say, "Hey, I'm gonna." So let's say for you, in my personal opinion, if say you said no, I don't care. I really want to come to US, and we'll see. For you to transition into Thermo Fisher US would be easier, in my personal opinion, if it happens, versus for you to say there is a job in a company called Nanocentric or whatever, and they do exactly the same stuff as Thermo Fisher and or Saint Gobain US, and
Mm-hmm.
I want to apply to that job, and hopefully I will get it. I would say the chances for that is almost zero, almost zero. So having said that, uh, then what that question comes, what can I do, what should I do, right? And you have a PhDs. I don't know whether you are single or married, but if you're married, then everything I have said has no meaning, because then you have your degrees of freedom are almost constrained.
Yeah, I'm married, but we both are. In fact, she is also working. My wife also works in a multinational company.
Yeah, but that's what I'm
So yeah.
saying is like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're single, it's easy. If you're double, then
Mm.
if you're triple, then it's extremely rare. So that's my point. You
Mm-hmm.
can't just say I'm dropping and leaving. That's what I'm saying. It
Yeah.
doesn't happen that way. So just think of that. I've known many people who have said, these type of things happens very often, where you get this feeling of whether this is a job for me. What's the point of having this job because I have a PhD and all? It's very, very common. I know my friends who
Mm-hmm.
have the same feeling. Even in US, I had the same issue, not now, but when I was in this other company. And the only way to come out from it is either you quit the job and go for um, like for you, I would say, you know doing a postdoc, or getting back into the stream would be the only way to do it. So yeah, that's my honest opinion. I
Okay.
would say,
Yeah.
if you think I'm going to apply tomorrow to um, Rolls-Royce UK, and there is a job there, and it really fits my description of what I did in my PhD, because that's the only way you can move in. That's the only way.
Mm-hmm.
There is You can't move to what you're thinking based on what you do right now,
Yeah.
right? Or try to like your job, because as I said to you, I know a lot of my friends. I had a friend who she graduated from Berkeley. She works in a company called Nano Strings.
Okay.
She's an I think it's a very much like Thermo Fisher, and I think she likes her job, and she travels a lot, because all these jobs, especially if you're an application engineer or manager, I mean, I have seen like people travel quite a lot. She enjoys that, and live her life. So
Mm-hmm.
and that's how. And I know one guy who works for, what's the name of the company? I forgot. He graduated from Purdue 2 years back. He was asking me the same question. He got a job in some nano indentation company. They sell nano indenter. So he's the application engineer. So same thing, like
Okay.
So what I'm saying, like here, it's going to be the same thing. Not
Same thing.
every
Yeah.
time, yeah. And most of the jobs are like that too. It's not like R&D jobs. Even for if I ask me, even for Lockheed where I work, the R&D jobs are, I would say, not everyone does R&D. Your job is your job entails a good amount of work that is related to how you can bring money, how you can sell product, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, the only choice is, if you can avail that, is like go to academics. It's very satisfying if you feel like this is what I like, this is what I want to do. And that would be my suggestion. But for that, probably you have to do another postdoc for a couple of years, and then look for a job. And it happens. I mean, people have done that. I mean, few of my friends who got tired from industry, and they went back to academics. So
Understand.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I totally, I appreciate, I mean, your time, and this is very, very realistic, very valuable
Yeah,
suggestion.
I mean, as I said, I understand what I'm saying. I totally understand your frustration, and the problem
Yeah.
here is I don't know what is the level of that frustration is, which I can't gauge right now. But I can
Yeah.
tell you my level of frustration was such that I had to quit that job. It was that bad. And as soon as I quit that job, it was not a good time, because I didn't have the job for 2 3 months, and I had bills to pay.
Okay.
So and at the time my wife was studying too, and so it was not a great thing to do. But you can imagine the frustration I had. I was
Yes. Yes.
extremely frustrated at that time. And so just check your level of frustration. You want to make sure that it doesn't go where you, because then you cannot perform. The only reason
Agreed.
I think I when I started working at Lockheed, I think I grown quite a lot, and I did quite well because I loved what I do. I enjoyed every day, people, work, mission, leadership, everything. Every package is like what I was looking for. So not a single day goes by where I enjoy it. And this is what you want. You don't want to say, oh my god, कहाँ फंस गया यार मैं. ये तो
Yeah.
मतलब.
Yeah.
And then on the top of that, the cherry in the pie is if your boss is horrible. That's like the worst thing. And most of the time what happens in sale, nobody is your friend. It's a very cutthroating job. At the end of the day, when your boss asks you what the sales looks like for next month, he's not your friend, he or she.
Yes.
Because for him is, I think, somebody actually from India sent me, there was a LinkedIn, I think there was a Bengali guy who was shouting at everyone. I don't know whether he saw that.
Uh, yes. Yes. HDFC.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, 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 some bank, right? And somebody sent me that. I don't understand Bengali, but